Welcome to IFAS Extension. Have you ever been outside? You know, we'd like to get outside here in the summer sometimes, and it's a little warmer. You go in and out a lot real quickly, but you know, lots of times we see some of the things that are out in the landscape. We see little black things walking on the sidewalk, and we go, what is that? Oh yeah, those are those ants. Oh my gosh, they're coming in the house. You know, and so we look at those trails and we try to figure out how to stop those trails. But you know, have you ever thought about what it's like to be someone that identifies those ants and tells you how to take care of them? You know, those are usually called an entomologist. So, and sometimes you have to be a detective. So if you want to learn how to be a beck detective, this is the show for you. And we have for our guest today, Angie Nino, and she is going to be teaching us a little bit about how to be an entomologist and how to be a bug doctor. So welcome, Angie.
Thank you, Anita.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
And tell us a little about yourself. You're a student, correct right now?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm a graduate student at the University of Florida. I'm doing my PhD program in the entomology and nematology department.
Ah, so entomology and nematology.
Yes.
So do you work with nematodes?
I haven't had the chance
Haven't
yet.
had the chance,
Yeah,
okay.
I've taken some classes, and I have some labs, but I haven't worked with them yet.
Okay. So you work with entomology. Now, what got you thinking about wanting to be an entomologist?
Well, when I was young, I used to be out like in my grandparents' farms, so I basically love nature in general, and
Okay.
I found like I love butterflies. That's fascinating for me. That was fascinating when I was growing up. But then when I started studying biology back in my country, I'm from Colombia, I just had a small project with insects, with pollinators, and I just fell in love with them. They are amazing. I just found them really amazing creatures.
And there are more pollinators, right? Besides, we tend to think of bees, honeybees as pollinators, but
Yeah.
there's lots more, correct?
Yeah, we do have. There are different insects that work as pollinators, not only bees. They mainly, if they get in contact with pollen, they will be able to carry it on to other
Right,
plants.
whether they have that plant or not, right?
Yeah.
So they can
if
just
they
kind of
pass by.
haphazardly get into the pollen and move it from one flower to another.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. A lot of people don't realize that there's other pollinators out there. In fact, mosquitoes
Yeah.
happen to fall in. Even the males and females will happen to do that. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, so you started out with as a biologist. That's what your bachelor's is in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Biology.
And then what is your master's in?
Entomology.
Okay.
And then
And what are you studying?
But right now I'm working with an invasive pest in Florida, which is
Okay.
called the yellow margin leaf beetle. It's a beetle that came from Argentina,
Oh.
and now it feeds on crucifers in general, like bok choy, turnips, collards,
Like cabbage,
cabbage. Yeah.
broccoli, things like that. Okay.
So this pest came from Argentina, and it got established in all the southeastern part of U.S. And I'm trying to find a way to at least keep it in low population, so they don't make as much harm as they do.
So kind of
usually.
controlling it. It's pretty hard to eradicate things.
Yeah.
We know that, right?
Yeah, and probably it's not good.
Right, right.
And it's difficult. It's going to be too expensive. So we want it to be controlled, to keep it in low numbers so it won't make too much harm.
So what were they doing? What kind of controls are you looking at?
During my master's, I look at something called biological control, which is the use of other insects or other living things to control those insects. So I work with green lacewings, which are insects that you see around. They usually feed on aphids and other small insects, but
So they're predators.
yeah, they're predators. So I was looking at them as if they could feed on of this insect. Then I moved into more cultural practices, like the use of plastic mulch to see which is the effect, if it favors or it's bad for the population of this insect, or the removal of dry leaves. I'm also looking into the use of repellents to keep the insects away from the crops we don't want them to be on.
So what is the plastic mulch? If you're putting that down, what were you thinking it would do?
Well, it is a common practice, like in the farms where I work
Right,
in.
it is. You're right.
So sometimes I notice that the insects hide under the mulch.
Oh, okay.
So anything that you put on the plants or spray, or they just keep the warm and protect it from rain and other things. So I wanted to see if probably that was making worse the problem.
I see.
Giving them protection and keeping them away from other things that could kill them. Or
Does their whole biology happen on the leaf? I mean, from like, because they have the egg, right, and the larvae, and then the pupal stage. So does that all happen on the leaf, or does some happen on the soil?
Well, these insects lay their eggs on the floor, usually on their dried leaves. So there are some predators that are on the soil.
Okay,
that
so that can
well,
kind of help.
Yeah, we don't really know if there are any specific, but
Lots of questions, huh?
yeah, we still are trying to understand better the biology of this insect.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so maybe those nematodes that are, because I know there's good nematodes.
Yeah.
We always think of the bad ones, but so if that was something that might be be helpful in the soil.
Yeah, the thing is because the eggs are not in the soil. They're under on the soil where they can dry it really fast. I don't think the nematode will survive really well to control them.
I see.
They need a more humid and more humid environment, so it will be too dry.
Too dry up on top of the soil.
Yeah.
So once they hatch, what do? Just climb up then?
They just look for the plant and feed on the leaves. They make huge holes on the leaves, and because they are too many of them emerge as one, they all feed collectively.
Oh, kind of like an aggregate. They stay together, like what, safety in numbers?
Kind of that, and they just can feed on all the leaves of the plant really fast, and they move to another plant.
Okay. And how big are they?
Oh, pretty small. The adults is like 5 millimeters long. They are really small.
So they're very tiny.
Yeah.
And so that's probably why they come in lots of numbers. So
yeah, you just see them when they are eating, when you see the damage on the leaves. Otherwise, they are under the leaves, and it's really
so
hard
you don't
to find
normally
them.
see them on top of the leaves or under the leaves?
Under the leaves, yeah.
And what color are they?
They are brownish. Well, the larvae are brownish, and the adults are black with a yellow margin on the.
Where they get the yellow margin leaf?
That's the name. That's the name.
That's where it gets its name from. Okay. And how long do they live for?
Well, the females, they can last from maybe 2 months to 4 or 5 months. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of, they can live long.
Probably as long as that crop.
Yeah,
right?
but they only appear during the cold months, the cool months.
Oh, well, that's when we grow them here.
Yeah.
Now, is that different when up north? Because up north they grow them. How far north does this go? I guess I should ask.
The insects has been recorded up to, I think, is North Carolina probably.
Okay.
It's not too up north.
Okay.
Louisiana.
So would that time kind of vary just a little bit, perhaps, when the crops are produced from what we do?
Yeah. Or they stay a longer time.
Longer, cooler time that they have than we do, yeah. Yeah, ours is like, do we have a cool time?
Pretty short.
I know, it's really short. It's never here very long.
Yeah.
Well, so when they, and of course, if they're eating and making these big holes in the leaves, that makes a plant like bok choy or collards or things of that nature you can't sell them because they have all these holes in them. It's one thing if it's eating a whole of a broccoli leaf because we eat the head of the broccoli, so it's a little different.
Yeah, in the case of cabbage or bok choy, we eat the leaves. So it's really hard, and it's worse for organic growers, for example, because in conventional growing, they can apply some insecticides, which will kill the insect fast, so you can prevent some of the damage. But when you are an organic grower, you are limited on the number of insecticides you can use.
Right.
And they are not all as effective.
And they have to be labeled, right, for use in organic. I think it's called an OMRI label.
Yeah.
Organic Material Research Institute, something like that, yeah. So, all right, so that's but then those would be a little safer, and it'd be safer for the homeowners too as well.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
did you try? So you said you mentioned that you were looking for predators that would go after this insect, like the green lacewing. And how was that successful?
It does eat a lot of eggs and larvae, but when they have choice to find other prey, they go after other prey.
These
So
guys
it's
don't
not-
taste so good, huh?
Yeah, so they don't really prefer them.
Okay.
If it's their only choice, they will eat them.
Ah.
But that's something that is not too good for this kind of predator.
So how would you go about finding a predator that would be perfect for this insect? Would you have to go back to Argentina?
Yeah, that will be the best way to do it. Because you want to go to where they came from, where they usually, you will find a natural enemy that have, like, grow up together with the pest, and then you will find probably the perfect natural enemy to.
Okay, so because you've looked at the natural enemies we would have here, and if they're not as effective, you really want to go with one from the country it came from.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. Yeah.
That makes sense. And that's when it has to go in through a process, though. When you bring them from, say you found either a predator or some other organism, you would bring it back here. You have to get permits, right?
That's right. You have
And-
to.
Yeah.
First be sure that it won't harm the different insects that are already here. So you have to bring it into a quarantine facility first. You have to have all the permits to take it out from the country and get it in the
And bring it
US.
into the country.
Yeah. And then in the quarantine, you have to do a lot of tests to make sure that it's harmless to other living organisms or plants, or that
Right.
it won't become a problem. Because once it is released, you cannot get it back.
Can't bring it back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
once you make all those tests, you will submit a petition to get a release permission. So then you will be able to use it out.
Then you're able to release it.
Yeah.
Okay. And that takes what?
Like 10 years. or
10
more.
years, yeah. So,
It's a long process.
So it's
yeah.
good that you're looking at other things until that could happen,
Yeah.
perhaps. But yeah, that does take quite some time. So, and you mentioned that you're looking at some other products as well for control. Like, are they those organic ones we were talking about, or other things?
Yeah, well, I've been trying repellents, which can be used in organic farming.
Okay.
Yeah, usually there are some that are already are commercially available. And I also testing other natural enemies, which
Okay.
are entomopathogens,
Oh,
which
okay.
are either, in my case, fungi that infect the insects.
And what is
can also-
entomopathogen?
It's
Insect killing?
yeah.
Okay. Pathogen is pathogen, ento.
Yeah,
Okay. Just
yeah.
trying to
So-
make sure I understood
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Like something that will kill the insects. Even it can be a fungus or a virus or a bacteria. Nematodes are also
And so
called.
they're specific to insects. Just like you were
Just
saying,
insects.
we want to make sure nothing gets
Yeah.
released that would harm others.
No, it's not. It only can develop in an insect, no, nothing else.
Okay. And so how does the fungus develop inside an insect?
Okay, they have different like ways to get inside the insect. There are some. They produce spores,
Okay.
which they get onto the insects, and then they the spore. From the spore, there is like a tube that gets into the insect, and then it gets inside, and it starts growing up until they kill the
Okay.
insect.
So then the fungus enters the insect and then it populates, producing more, and then that's what actually kills the insect.
Yeah.
And then once the insect's dead, then
Then they go out,
the
and
spores
the
go out
spores,
and
yeah.
look for more.
Yeah.
Okay. And so bacteria and viruses,
Yeah.
there's also those too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those have to be ingested though, right? Or eaten.
Eaten. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to spray like a leaf with bacterium or something, then the insect would have to eat it. In
Yeah.
other words, to ingest it to get the bacterium in their system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But with the fungus, it could be that way, or it could go right through its exoskeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard because the exoskeleton is too hard for the fungus to penetrate in. But
But the
Yeah.
yellow margin leaf beetles, because beetles have that hard shell, right? That
Yeah.
elytra, they call it.
Yeah.
And in some cases, some beetles, that is really hard because when you try to stick a pin through them, it's like,
It's
okay.
hard. Yeah.
So.
But in the case of larvae, which are more
Okay.
salty, there, then it will work.
I see. So
Yeah.
we were looking more at the larvae.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, and then when you find this information out, how do you share this information?
Well, there are many ways to do it. There's usually scientific works. You do it through publications, scientific publications. Or you can also go to conferences and give talks, or either you can have a poster. But there's also extension programs in which you go and train the people, the farmers, or
So the work with the
workers.
growers.
Yeah.
Explain what
Together.
you've discovered. I bet you
Yeah.
they're anxious because I know that's what they are with many things. They want to know what's the answer, what's the answer. Yeah, and a lot of times they're willing to try things even. You know?
Yeah.
So have you had some working with you?
Some
Growers working
growers,
with you?
yeah. Yeah,
That's
I work
good.
with-
That's
yeah.
good to have that because it's hard to get some of those plants that you're talking about unless you raise them yourself. So if a grower's already raising them, you can do the work right
yeah,
there.
we need to work together because
Yeah.
it's too hard for just one person to have a crop
Right.
and then take care of
And take care of it
everything
and
then
monitor it and all that too.
Yeah.
Well, monitoring is a big part of what you do, right? And I think
It
that's
is.
important that we share that with everyone because plant ID or insect ID is extremely important, as well as what I think you were talking about with scouting. You know, so
Yeah.
you're looking to see, like you said, they're underneath the leaf, so you have to really there. And do you have to make counts or anything about how many are there because they're so tiny? That must be very difficult.
Yeah, well, it's important to know which is the numbers because just knowing that they are present or not necessarily means that they are in enough numbers to make harm. So it's important to know where they are, how many there are, so you can know what you can do, where do you need to take measurements. So first you need to know what is happening, to know what methods or what measurements you need to take.
So
control.
when you're trying to determine how effective something is, whether it's a fungus or a bacterium or another predator, how do you go about looking at how to determine that? Do you look at leaves before and after, or
Yeah, usually you can look before the measurement was taken to see which is the difference in the population number, or you can have either a section of the crop with the treatment that you want to use, either the predator or the fungus, and another part without applying anything.
And that would
So
be
you
your
c-
control.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the control. So that's the way you compare both, and you can say which is the effect that this predator or the fungus is having on the
Okay, so you'd
pest.
have a control, and then you'd have some that were treated with the fungus, and then you'd have some that were treated with a insect. So are you caging over them so that the predators don't go somewhere else?
Well, there are different kind of, like in the experiments I'm doing, I'm not caging, but
Okay.
it is the first part. Before you do it without cages, you do it with cages to make sure it's the only thing that you are controlling, that
Okay.
they are not going away or wherever. But then what I use is different plants, like plots with different plants. I know that the insects won't try to go, or as long as they find prey, they will stay in the same area. So
Okay. So as long as there's enough prey there, they'll stay.
yeah.
That's cool. Okay. And so you mentioned before the lacewings found other things that were more nutritious or to their liking than these guys. So
Yeah.
what other predators are you looking at?
We have seen many stink bugs.
Oh, so
Which-
they're now all stink bugs stink,
No, yeah,
but there's some
not-
good stink bugs.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are some
or
good.
predators, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, there are some good ones. We have released some of them before, and they seem to work pretty well. And I also find many others that are naturally occurring. I
Okay.
also seen coccinellids, like lady beetles.
Lady beetles. Okay.
That will feed on
Really? Okay.
on the eggs or
On the eggs
larvae.
or the larvae? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we
Wow.
look at.
So that's
yeah.
kind of cool. So you release some of those to see, and you're using the different fungus. And are you using any bacteria or no?
No.
Okay. Those are kind of hard to figure out.
Yeah.
So have you talked to anyone in Argentina to see if there is a natural predator there?
Yes, I have. I've contacted a person who works in a university back in Argentina. She's not an entomologist, but she works with different varieties of crucifers.
Okay.
And she published something with the life cycle with Microtheca. And I contacted her. She found some a parasitoid, which was a fly, and another was a wasp too. But we haven't found many others, so we still, it's like we didn't find them in enough number to be sure that this could be good.
Could be a good one to release or to research here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we still need to look for.
And when you're looking at, you said parasitoids, that to go after the eggs, and you said a fly and a wasp. These are like really tiny,
Really
right?
tiny
Yeah, they're
ones,
not,
yeah.
because most people, when you tell them that, they think of the kind of wasps that sting
Yeah.
us and things like that. So these guys don't do that.
Don't do that. They
Right.
are really small. They look like flies,
Look
really,
like-
really small.
Yeah, look
And,
like a little pencil dot.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
they're
then
very tiny.
they are also really specific. They won't look for anything else but the prey, the insect they lay their eggs in. So they're really
So
specific.
they're specific to that insect. That's
Yeah.
really good, because then they don't go out for the what they call non-target organisms,
Yeah.
the things that we might like the butterflies,
Yeah.
things like that they might go after.
That's right.
Yeah, so they
And
only go
they-
after that.
Yeah, usually they are more specific than the predators.
Right, predators.
So-
Yeah, like when you think of predators, I always think of things like praying mantis that will eat just about anything.
Yeah.
You know, that moves.
Anything,
They
They
eat
will
just
eat.
about
Yeah.
even each other. So yeah, that happens sometimes. Well, so what do you plan to do when you graduate?
Well, I'm planning to going back to my country, and I would like to go more into the extension part.
Oh, very
I
good.
think it's really important to do scientific experiments and scientific projects, but also we need to transfer that information, because
Right.
sometimes they just get into books or papers or
Right. Just
scientific-
like you mentioned, a published paper, that's great for people that look at that. But you're
Yeah.
right, most people, well, we go to the internet and look for papers there perhaps, but most people want some hands-on training.
Yeah.
You know, how to do that. And because you're talking about putting an entomopathogenic fungus out, which is a huge word, and most people are like, what? And so if you don't show them how to properly do that, because I've had conversations with growers, even when they've used predators that they've released, that like Tamarexia, which is another wasp that's very small, they get it to try to control some things in, say, their citrus grove, and they release them and they get them in a container, and they put the container in the middle of the field. And then, okay, and then what, and then they come back 2 days later and spray with a chemical. Well, that totally defeated that purpose. So yes, helping them understand how they can do it. And from what I understand, there's some chemicals that can be applied at different times with different predators or parasitoids. So
That's true.
So that's a good thing for them to be understanding too. Well, that's really cool. So you're probably going to work with vegetable growers or homeowners or both, or
I think vegetable growers.
vegetable growers, yeah, because that's kind of what you're working with now.
Yeah.
That's
Like
good.
every grower.
And I understand you're going to try to put a survey together for here
Yeah.
in
I will.
in Florida, right? The whole state of Florida.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know if I will
okay.
be able to go up to all the state, but at least regional, at least the southern part.
Okay.
Because I want to see if people perceive this insect that I'm working with, the yellow margin leaf beetle, as something bad for them, if they have problems with it before, if they've seen it, if they,
Right,
you know.
right. Are you having a problem with this yellow margin leaf
Yeah.
beetle, or is it just here in some parts of Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and that's good, because if you ask them those questions, they may want to get back in touch with you to find out some of your results and
Yeah,
find out ways that you've been effective. I know that's true for the one I'm working on. People are always asking me what's effective in controlling it, and this is the same thing for our citrusillid. People want to know what's the most effective thing, and there's no silver bullet, I don't think, for anything. And it's like you said before, we don't eradicate. We can try to manage or control. To the best of our ability. So do you see maybe perhaps in your case that the control of the yellow margin leaf beetle may be several things? I mean, if you've got, say you find a parasitoid or something else, if they eat those yellow margin leaf beetles, whether it's the eggs or the larvae, and there's not a whole lot there, is there something they can eat if you've brought them in, or something they can we talked about nectar or pollen. So is there a method that you would suggest to them?
Yeah, usually when you release parasitoids, it is important to keep, because they don't, well, some of them feed on the insects, but some don't. They just leave their eggs inside.
Right.
So they need something to eat from.
They need some
usually,
energy.
yeah, and they take it from either a nectar from the flowers or pollen. So it's important to have flowering plants around the place where you release
Okay, so
them.
you have your crop, and then you would have some other flowering plants along, so that parasitoid or other insect that you're using as a beneficial insect
Yeah.
has a way to feed or get energy from. Even bees need that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, that's a really good point to bring up. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you would probably find that information from where you got that beneficial.
Yeah.
Because all beneficials like different things. Just just like the insects that you're hoping that they'll prey on.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. So that's other information you'd be passing on as well, is knowing all that. It'd be nice to have a resource like that, wouldn't it? That we could just go to and say, okay, if you're going to use this predator or parasite, you're going to use these plants to keep it happy when there's no food around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or no
Yes,
eggs for you to lay into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important because even when the pest gets into really low numbers, they need to keep alive around, because then you have to release more, and that will cause more. But if you can keep them alive for some time until the population again go up and they can,
Wow.
yeah.
So when you go out in the field, what's one of the main tools that you take with you to investigate?
The tools?
Yeah, what's the main tool that you take?
Oh, the magnifier.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So
So you can
important.
see, because they're so small, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's a good point to bring up, because a lot of homeowners don't realize they may have a magnifier that they may use for reading, or they may use for other purposes, but they're really helpful when you're trying to diagnose what's wrong with your plant. So when you're trying to be that plant doctor, it's good to have have a little hand lens with you.
Yeah.
So, and then
important.
a place to write stuff down.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, thank you for all your information. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thanks.
And thanks for joining us. And join us next time for another adventure in Extension.